Team South Africa wrapped up their campaign at the 13th Africa Games in Accra on Sunday. Now, the team ended with 106 medals, which placed them in third place overall on the medal standings behind Egypt and Nigeria. The athletes' medal haul included 32 gold, 32 silver and 42 bronze medals. To chat about this in studio, I am joined by SASCOC General Manager in Communications and Marketing, Bronson Mokabela. Bronson, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's been an eventful morning, stepping in at the last moment for your CEO. But let's talk about the highlights then from the Africa Games. Having said that you had 106 medals, one would say, well, this was an impressive performance. By your standards, is it what SASCOC would have expected? Are you happy with the return that you got?
First of all, thank you, and thank you for the invitation to studio. In response to your question, I believe it was a successful campaign from a Team South Africa perspective. I think we have to put into context that these games were initially meant to be in August, September of last year. So with the postponement to March of this year, unfortunately, a number of our top athletes couldn't attend. So we ended up with a team of a blend of both sort of experience and youth. So I think from that perspective, it was a very positive campaign from a Team South Africa perspective. And yeah, as you indicated, 106 medals, which placed us third behind Egypt and Nigeria. So I think, yeah, very impressive, and looking forward to the future.
Yeah, you're talking about some of the disruptions, the date being moved being one of them. What are some of the other challenges that you would have encountered on this journey as SASCOC and Team South Africa?
So we try to prepare as much as we can. I don't think many of us expected the heat and the humidity that we encountered when we were over there. But I have to put it out there and say thank you and a heartfelt thank you to the team doctors that we had. I think we had the most professional team at the event. But in terms of preparation, so you do as much as you can, sort of apparel, making sure that athletes have their clothing in time, booking of flights. But in terms of the major challenges, I think it was mostly the facilities. Ghana is quite a widespread country, so getting to some of the venues proved challenging sometimes, and traffic on its own. But we made do, as our team leader at the game said, if your room you don't love your room, make your room love you. So we made it home as much as we could.
Well, good to see that you were able to perhaps deal with the challenges. One of them, of course, making headlines, the hockey teams not being able to play due to challenges with the surfaces. What were the circumstances surrounding that? Because you were on the ground. What led to that? And is it something that perhaps could have been prevented or avoided, in your opinion?
I guess the biggest prevention could have been ready in time. So I think the biggest challenge that we had is that the team, both the men and women, had flown to Accra to participate at the games. And unfortunately, the field, in consultation with the SA Hockey, in consultation with the experts around sort of the laying of the field, there was just a concern around the time available for the field to be laid out and be ready. And it's also critical to also acknowledge that the teams that were there were both men and women that have qualified for the Olympics. So I think the biggest risk and concern was just around injuries, from a field that I guess maybe from a layman one could say there is a field just play, but there's technical aspects that, people needed to consider. So unfortunately, it was felt that to take part in the games, although other people did play hockey, and you have to acknowledge that, I think it was just a concern around the time when the field was ready. It was meant to be the 21st of Feb. We were informed that would be the time and the date. But by the time the team arrived, the field unfortunately was not ready. But yeah, we had the team there, so people were ready to participate.
And what are the cost implications in a situation like that? Because, of course, you would have already incurred the cost. The team was already there. They had traveled. So were there discussions then in terms of how that is reimbursed? Or is that something that you took on as SASCOC to say, well, we're willing to take that knock?
I guess our mandate was to get the team there. So we did what we needed to do. In terms of the implications, that's ongoing conversation with the organizing committee, as well as Africa Hockey. At the moment, it's still in discussion. We only came back on Sunday. I think a lot of us are still acclimatizing back to the conditions here at home. So in the meantime, there will be those conversations happening. As to the outcome, I don't think I'm in a position here to confirm what that would be, but we did what we needed to do. So our mandate is to deliver the team to the games, which we did, and the team was in time. actually even preparing to play, you know, in the hope that, you know, we could actually get them to play, but unfortunately circumstances didn't go away.
Well, the big success is swimming, of course, getting the most medals at the competition, but not without some challenges there as well, because we did see some reports about the impact of load shedding on the preparations for the swimming team. Was this, you know, an impact at all? Because we didn't see it in the results, but did it really affect the team as much as it's being reported?
I think there's certain psychological things that maybe go into any sportsman. But unfortunately, we did have a psychologist with us on the ground. But in terms of the swimming, as you indicated, they actually got the most medals of all the sporting codes. So I don't know if one can argue to say that it affected their performance by virtue of the results that they produced. So, but ultimately, to be honest, I think Ghana had one of the best facilities from a swimming perspective. You know, so they built new facilities. And top class quality facilities, including the swimming facility, as I indicated. So from that perspective, you know, as I said, sport that comes with its own challenges. Is Mike Tyson, as he says, you know, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face, but you have to improvise, you know. So we sorted it out, and as I said, the results came. And to be honest, it was also a very young team. So even from an experience perspective, I think it was good for the team to also participate. Athletes are getting ready for their local championships, you know, in the hope to qualify for Paris later in the year. So hopefully we'll see some of these youngsters that came through at the games also participating in Paris later on in the year. Well,
they dealt with it quite well. 46 medals then for the swimming team in total. But while we're still on the subject and wrapping up the subject of some of the challenges that you had to deal with, the doping lab in Bloemfontein, of course, having been closed. Did that have an impact in terms of results that you would have needed to send for the team that was getting ready to go and compete in Accra? Or was that something that you would have anticipated and dealt with to make sure that the impact was minimal?
So from a SASCOC perspective, you know, we engaged with the code managers for each of the sporting codes, who then in turn communicated with the respective athletes. So a big requirement was that they had to then go through a WADA online course to ensure that they are aware of the risks and sort of, you know, what goes into the testing, the process. So they could actually come to your room while you're sleeping to come and test you. So in terms of the lab itself, I don't think it had much of an impact because ultimately you get tested at the event, you know, so it's a matter of your results at the event. So we had the chief medical officer who was also highlighting to the athletes around, you know, hydration, and you shouldn't just take any bottle, for example, that's lying around, you don't know what's in it, because ultimately if your tests and you'll come back with something untoward, unfortunately that falls on the athlete. So we tried, we tried to ensure that the athletes were well as much prepared as possible. So both from a safeguarding perspective, you know, you're in a community of a lot of people, so to be aware around your rights, what you're not to do as well. But from a doping perspective, every single event, I'm sure, that we had, every athlete was tested. We haven't received anything that has indicated that, you know, any false substances were in the bodies of any of our athletes.
Right, well, let's look ahead to the big one, Paris 2024, and I think a lot of athletes would have been excited about that and looking ahead to perhaps qualifying because the window is still open. From a SASCOC perspective, what are some of the positives that you want to draw from these African Games as you look ahead and continue to prepare for Paris?
No, certainly. So I think the first one, I guess, was in the hope that the hockey team would have participated. As indicated that hockey has qualified, both the men and women. Some of the judo athletes, you know, so are quite close to achieving their standards as well. So 8 of these codes from these African Games were qualifiers for Paris in some form, whether it be points or actually getting automatic qualification. So I think also from an athlete perspective, in terms of competing against your peers, just to see where you are and what you then need to prepare for the upcoming months to actually lead up to Paris. So athletics will be having their local championships in April of this year. Swimming, similar. Banyana, we're hoping that they'll come through. You know, they quite close to achieving qualification. So, and then there's individual sports, ultimately, you know, swimming, athletics, and therefore, and the relay guys are also going to the World Champs in Bahamas in March. So we're hoping that through that participation, they'll also get to qualify for the Games in Paris.
And your big ticket items then, as we wrap things up, what is the key focus now for SASCOC in the lead up?
Team preparation, nothing else. Team preparation and team delivery. You know, we've got a high-performance team in the office that's working hard to work with the national federations to make sure then that the athletes are prepared. And it also needs to be acknowledged that Paris is both able-bodied and Paralympic, so it also works on both sides, that then the team is preparing to go to Paris. So, as I said, there's only two words that matter now, team preparation and team delivery. And I think just from our side, from a marketing and comms perspective, is working with our sponsors, you know, just around communication, broadcasters as well, you know, to drive the hype around the games. So, yeah, it's full steam ahead. You know, as soon as we landed on Sunday, game, you know, the gears shifted towards Paris, and that's where we're at now.
Well, two words, team preparation, according to Bronson Mokabela, of course, who is the GM for communications and marketing at SASCOC. Thank you so much for your time, Bronson, and we wish you all the best as you prepare for Paris 2024.
Thank you.